Hey guys, I'm back this week and I thought it only fair to you that I did my testimony. So now you can kind of get a real backstory on me and what God's kind of done in my life and how I got to be where I am today as far as all that. So I hope you get something out of this, but I think it's really important that if y'all are going to be listening to me on here, that y'all kind of know what has brought me to here. So honestly, since I was really young, I can't ever remember a time where I didn't know God. As I was growing up, when I was really little, I'd spent a lot of time with my granny, which is like my great grandma, and she taught me a lot about like the little, this little light of mine and all these little Sunday school songs. And I remember whenever I was over at her house, all we'd watch was this like Christian TV, and all it was is a bunch of pastors, get on, and throughout the day you had different sermons and people, with different choirs and stuff. So I mean, everything church all day long, 24 hours of the day. And to a little kid, of course, who was brought up on classic cartoons like Bugs Bunny and Roadrunner and Scooby-Doo, no, that wasn't really entertaining, but I did learn, of course, the basic songs out of it. So I am really grateful for that. Plus, she liked to talk too, so I got to learn a lot about life and a lot of stories from her. So as I got a little bit older, I remember times where just like music, I think, was a consistent way God was in my life as a kid. And I remember every time we got into the car, I insisted on playing this one tape. And I'm pretty sure that my nanny, whenever I call her my nanny, I didn't start that. I have a nanny and a nan daddy, and I will link Kelsey McGregor for starting that. I don't know where she got it, but hey, they're unique grandparent names. So my nanny and nan daddy, I'm pretty sure they got me this tape, and it had all these little Christian kid songs, and I can't, and as I was riding in the car, I would just like demand that this song, or not this song, but this whole tape be played. And I can only imagine the physical pain my mom had to go through every time she had to physically take out the tape and then turn it over and start it again. Because I know that a lot of times we were driving from, a few hours from here to there seeing family, so I can only imagine how difficult that was for her. But hey, I enjoyed it. So music was a big part of God's in my life. Like the start of my life, that's where God's presence was. And so as a kid, I was like, oh yeah, I sing about it, so it's got to be true. I mean, all these songs, they've got to come from somewhere. So as I got a little bit older, I met my best friend JC in elementary school, and she made it known that there's this thing called Wednesday night church, and I started going with her. Secretly, I think a mention of maybe the cute boy in class was there, and he came every now and then. Well, the story is that he never came, but I continued to go. So priorities, So I started going, and of course that taught me a lot more about God and eventually led me to going to church camp. And I went to church camp a few times with that church, and I think I got saved almost every time. And I know that's not, some people are going to be like, well, you can't really get saved multiple times. But every time I did get saved, they would, go through these questions with me. And every time I'd be like, yeah, I did that a long time ago. Like, they'd be like, oh, do you accept God into your heart? And I'd be like, yeah, I thought I did that like years ago. Okay, yeah, sure. And I would just go with it. And I'm like, yeah, I'm saved now. And it's not that I was doing it for the wrong reasons, but I realized every time that I was like, well, yes, I'm saved, and yes, I've accepted God in my heart, But I think what I was really needing was that next level, that next step. And I didn't know anything about being baptized or growing in my leadership. I didn't know anything about that. I was a young kid, and I felt the call of God at a young age. So I never really understood those big moments and why I wasn't really getting what I needed to out of them. And so now looking back, I think about those Christians that are kind of like me, where, maybe they were brought up, knowing God, and they started questioning why in those big Christian moments they weren't feeling the same as some of the people around them. They weren't feeling those big convictions, or like, why isn't this being saved thing, why isn't it working for me? And looking back on it now, I know that I just needed more. I had gotten to that point in my heart, and I just needed that next level. It wasn't necessarily that I wasn't saved, because I was. I just already did it. I already accepted the fact that God was in my life for good, and that God was going to be this grand person that I could go to. I had already established that. And I guess I never really understood that you didn't have to go up in front of everyone to be saved. You just needed to be like, hey, God, you're in my life now. Like, we're doing this. We're going to go off. We're going to conquer. And that's kind of how it was for me. And I'm sure, like, as you're questioning some of these things, that might be where you're at, is maybe, yes, you have accepted God in your heart, but you need those next steps. But honestly, it wasn't until years later in junior high that I started to realize what it meant for those next steps to happen. I was just kind of going through the motions, getting saved, every couple of weeks or every couple of months, and just continuing to get saved in front of my peers, which was great. I'm glad that I was so convicted, but it was so misleaded. So anyways, I move on to junior high, and that's when I kind of really got into youth group, and I met this new family that was my youth group that really grew me in my Christian faith, and that grew my relationship with God and made me understand leadership a lot more. And once I got to that point, I can remember a distinct conversation, and the conversation reminds me almost exactly to the T of what God tells Jeremiah. So let me read Jeremiah for you really quick. So it's Jeremiah 1, and it's going to be verse, let me show you. Oh, how do I switch this thing? Oh, I'm just taking pictures of myself. Okay, well, anyways, I'll just read it. Okay, so it says, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. Ah, sovereign Lord, I said, I do not know how to speak. I am only a child. But the Lord said to me, do not say I am only a child. You must go to everyone I send you to and say whatever I command you. Do not be afraid of them, for I am with you and will rescue you, declares the Lord. Then the Lord reached out his hand and touched my mouth and said to me, now I have put my words in your mouth. So he's telling Jeremiah, he's like, Jeremiah, I know you're scared, I know you're young, but that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that you're afraid. It doesn't matter, because I've got you. All that matters is what you're doing now. And that's what I had to get in my head as a junior high kid. And so I started talking to my friends, honestly, like anytime anything came up that revolved around love or relationships or heck, anything, like what they're having for lunch the next day or that day. I mean, I would fit in God just about anywhere. And I really ended up becoming kind of a mini counselor for all my junior high friends, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. That's when I found out that I wanted to be a counselor whenever I grew up, and that's how I kind of started going down this route where, hey, I can talk to people about God, and it's fine. And as long as they feel safe in the conversation, heck, even if they are a little bit, you know, I guess, questioning of it, it's okay, because God is going to give you the words. You just have to trust Him. And that's kind of where I started and ended my junior high career. And then I moved into high school. And so in high school, things got a little bit more tricky. I found out that we were moving back to Texas, and that was great. I was so excited to be closer to family and, all these new adventures that were going to happen. I didn't know what to expect, but I knew that it was going to be good. Now, that being said, this is also about the time that God taught me that things aren't always in my control and that He's going to ask me to do some hard things. I thought that speaking to people about God was going to be hard, but no, this next part was hard. Not just for me, but for a majority of my family. So I get to the end of my freshman year and we're about to move, and about halfway through the summer, God tells me, hey, I want you to move out of your amazing parents' house. Shout out to my mom and my stepdad, Brad. They are amazing. They're the greatest people. Honestly, I love them. But he told me, Tristan, you've got to move to this small little town, Bogota, with your dad and your stepmom. You've got to do it. And I was like, okay, God, I don't understand, but okay. And that's got to be probably one of the hardest things that I've ever done, because as a young person, having to tell your family that you're moving out and that you're going to go live, somewhere else, it's hard on them. And it's a hard transition to make. And so I really appreciate all the people that were involved in that and how much sorry, I'm getting emotional. How much they supported me. And so fast forward, I didn't know that this was going to happen, but I ended up meeting my husband now, Trevor, and it is the greatest thing that's ever happened. But also another greatest thing that's ever happened is I ended up being able to meet all these great people at Rivercrest. I learned a lot about small town life, which was good and bad, but it was a learning experience, and I got to meet a lot of great people and affect a lot of great people out of it, spread love, and just really learn what small town communities like this one can be like to support people. And I'll probably end up staying here my whole life just because of that. Anyways, so I get to this point where I've graduated, and now I'm ready. Hey, this next step, what else do you have for me, God? That's where I get to, and I'm like, I feel it. I feel a call. I don't know what you've got for me, but just send me. And so I started going to Wednesday night women's church Bible study, and I started to feel, not that I wasn't supposed to be there, because I was, but about halfway through it, we started talking about the youth group, and we started talking about the youth of today and all that. And I was like, I'd never work with that group. They're a hard group. Not gonna happen. I just left that life, so why would I want to go back? So fast forward like the next 2 Wednesdays, I decide, I'll go sit in on the youth and see how that goes. I doubt that I'll get involved. Whatever. I don't want to be involved in that age group. So after going to one Wednesday night church, the next Wednesday, I do believe, I started a Talk Time with T, and it was like a segment that I did after the lesson, and I answered just questions that they had submitted, and that was Talk Time with T. And so I did it all, like, they submitted their questions, and then I did the best to find it in the Bible, find the answer, and then present that to them next week. So after a couple of weeks, not very many weeks, maybe a month or two of Wednesdays, I come to Wednesday night church, and my wonderful youth pastor of years, Ryan Ballard, decided to step down, and he said, things are changing, and there's other things that need pursuing. And they were like, Tristan, will you take it? And of course I was like, yep, yeah, I'll do it. I knew this, God. I knew you were going to do this to me. Yeah, I'll do it. And I didn't realize how amazing it would be. I didn't realize how rewarding that would be. And I was only 20 years old, and I'm only 24 now, but still at such a young age, I didn't realize how big of a step that was going to be for me in my life. I didn't realize how much the kids would teach me versus me teaching them. I mean, I got blessed with a wonderful group of kids, and anyone who says that millennials are worth nothing, well, come talk to me, because I can guarantee that we have a lot to offer, and the group under me has a lot to offer, and heck, we might be better than y'all's group that does nothing but complain about us. Just saying. Anyways, we're not gonna talk about that. But that's kind of my story. That's how God came to me. He talked to me as if he didn't care. Heck, he doesn't care. He doesn't care how old you are. He doesn't care that, about time, because heck, one of my mottos has been that time is something that humans made up to feel like they're in control of their lives. And it's so true, because time is so irrelevant. We don't know what time is. We don't know that our lives don't revolve around what we're doing tomorrow or what we're doing the next day. It really doesn't matter, because we need to be looking at what's right now, what's in this moment. What are we doing to incorporate God in our lives right now? And it's so, this is the perfect time to be thinking about this, because we have got so many of our distractions eliminated from God, and I thank him for that, because I'm able to sit outside on this blanket and talk to y'all about God in the middle of the day and not worry about what I'm doing tomorrow, or what I don't even know, all the things that you could possibly worry about. A lot of that's gone now. And it's been a life-changing thing for us to just sit back, and it's been a good finding yourself moment. I keep telling myself, how can I incorporate God more into my life now that it's simple? Now that my life has been simplified at the most extreme, that it may not ever get simplified this much. And it's just finding that moment. Because like I said, it doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter that you're just a kid. It doesn't matter that you're 80 years old. It doesn't matter, because life could be tomorrow. That's it. I could be 24, and that's it. I don't have to be 25. I don't have to be a day older or a second older than I am right now. But I know that my challenge to me right now is to find the me in this world, and to find the God within me. I'm not saying that I'm God, and I'm not saying I'm a prophet like Jeremiah, but I am saying that I have a voice, and so do you. I'm saying that everyone has a voice, whether they think they do or not, whether they think they're good enough, whether you think that just because you're a certain way or just because your life is like this doesn't mean that you don't have a voice, because you do, and God plants that. And that's what he did for Jeremiah, and that's what he's doing for me, and that's what he's doing for anyone who trusts in him. So remember that now that we've got all these distractions taken away, we do have a voice more than ever, and that is our social media. And I'm not going to preach to you about how social media is the way that we need to bring everyone to God, but it is your voice. It is a way that we're reaching multiple people at a time, and it's basically all we have as far as social interaction right now. So take advantage of that time. I know that I scroll Facebook more than I ever did, and that's just because I'm lacking in talking to people. You can only get so far on the phone, and a lot of times people are putting their life out there on Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff. So I just want to share that with y'all, I guess. So I will end by reading Jeremiah one more time and just reminding y'all that you do have a voice, and that if you feel like you don't know what to say, just trust God and he'll give it to you. So, one more time. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. I said, I do not know how to speak. I am only a child. But the Lord said to me, do not say, I am only a child. You must go to everyone I send you to, and say whatever I command you. Do not be afraid of them, for I am with you and will rescue you, declares the Lord.